That's where it's all going to go down. What a gloomy looking day we're having out there.
Bro.
When I drove to work this morning, it was
sunny.
beautiful.
It was just sunny. We only been here 49 minutes
around here.
Armageddon.
Looks like December.
This is disgusting. You got Progressive in the background, Rocket Arena. Is that a live drone shot?
That can't be live.
It is not live, but it is a drone shot from the beautiful people upstairs at WKYC.
Okay.
Was it today?
This morning. Yak sent it to me this morning, so I assume it's this morning.
Man, I don't know. It was sunny when I drove in. Maybe that was. Oh, look, there's nobody on the streets. That was taken probably during our morning show, a Channel 3 morning show. So it's probably like 6 a.m.
Oh man, it's still
7 a.m.
Man, I'm glad it cleared up because that looked like a
that was depressing. That was depressing. What's not depressing is because the Cavs are finally back in the series, and we've got Justin Rowan in. He's from the Chase Down podcast to tell us about. So Mike and I were arguing. I don't know if you heard
There you go.
I'm not going to ask you to pick a side. First of all, welcome.
I'm ready to pick sides.
We choose sides here.
My point that I'm not making it properly, but my point was the tenor of the three games was clearly different.
Yeah.
Games 1 and 2, I'm not saying the Cavs weren't in them at any point. Obviously, the games were tied with 5 minutes to go. But to me, that's when, close and late, that's when I'm like, okay, now we're going to see what your mettle is. And the Cavs did not measure up in games 1 and 2. And I wasn't standing up for the last 60 seconds of either game.
Right.
I couldn't sit down for game 3 the last minute because I'm sitting here going, we're a miss and a make away from losing game 3. So am I making sense or am I crazy?
I get what you're saying there.
Okay.
I think what Mike's saying is that when you expend so much energy to come back from a deficit, you
100%.
don't always have that energy to
and I
close
agree
it
with
out.
that. That's why you don't fall down by 17 points.
But also, when you have all these self-inflicted wounds, you leave yourself open to, plays just not going your way. Duncan Robinson misses a shot, but it goes in because it goes off the back of the backboard.
Exactly.
RJ Barrett misses a shot, it bounces straight up in the air, right? Tobias Harris is getting touch calls, right? So you don't want to have those self-inflicted wounds, and you want to take care of business more consistently. And what we've seen from the Cavs throughout this season and the playoffs is they've done everything they need to do. They've demonstrated they can do what they need to do to win these games and win these series. But can they do it for 48 minutes? Sometimes it's can they do it for 40? That might be enough in some of these games.
Sure, yeah, if you build up enough lead. Can they win a game in Detroit? Because ultimately, that's what has to happen. I would like to see them do it in Game 5 because Game 7 is obviously it's much more difficult. But from what you've seen, can they go up there and steal one?
I think so. I do understand what he's saying, that those games were close enough that if you didn't put yourself in such a large hole early on, and, I think the effort point you brought up was accurate as well, right? Are you playing with the tempo? Are you playing with the purpose that you need to play with? And I think the biggest thing with the Cavs when they've lost in the playoffs the last few years, it has never felt like they went down swinging playing Cavs basketball. They were always playing tentative, or they were trying to not allow the opponent to play their strengths, right? If you look back at last year, when the Magic lost to the Celtics, sure, it was 5 games, but that felt like Orlando Magic basketball. When the Cavs beat the Warriors, everyone thought, okay, they have to make things ugly. They need to slow it down. You can't let the Warriors play their game. But the Cavs actually went out and they played Cavs basketball in 2016. The 4 highest paced games of that series were all Cavs wins, which was counterintuitive, but that was saying, we know what our game is, we're going to play to our strengths. And I think sometimes the Cavs get away from their strengths without letting the opponent do that to them.
What would you say, because, that's a good point, but sometimes when I watch the Cavs, there's 2 different Cavs teams. When you watch those LeBron teams, it was LeBron James can control the pace. Kyrie Irving is a monster. We can both get 40. Tristan can switch off on pick and rolls and guard a lot of people. And, hey, we can shoot threes from anywhere. I watched this Cavs team, and at one stanza is, okay, well, it's Donovan and it's James, but then there's also not as much movement as last year. There's a lot of more ISO. There's a lot more pick and roll. And when the ball is in James' hands, it sticks a little bit. So what would you say now is the Cavs' game?
Well, they might be wearing the 07 jerseys, but there's no LeBron in there, right? And I think the thing is, no one's going to be out there. I think when they win, they do it as a collective, right? You look at that Toronto series, the games that they won Evan Mobley led the team in front court touches. When they won Game 3, Evan Mobley led the team in front court touches. You look at Game 1, James Harden had 47 front court touches. So that's not talking about the times he actually brings the ball up court. That's touches that initiated in the front court. On the Detroit side of the floor, Evan Mobley only had 23. You have to have a balanced approach, right? You have to keep the bigs involved. And I thought what I liked about James Harden's Game 3 is that he let the game come to him, right? He was a primary initiator, but he wasn't forcing it. It wasn't dribble, dribble, dribble. We're finding those outlets in a timely fashion, and sometimes the same play is going to have a wildly different result based on how you execute it, how quickly you execute it, right? They went at Duncan Robinson slowly in Games 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Game 3, they played with tempo. James Harden setting off-ball screens. Everyone's kind of pitching in the playmaking and those off-ball screening. I think when they do it as a collective, they have a much better chance.
How do they rebound better? Defensively, how do they keep Detroit off the glass on offensive rebounds?
It's something Kenny talked about at practice, but I think it's on the guards and the wings to go out there and actually do their part in terms of putting a body on guys. Because you look at, so Game 1, Jalen Duren had a massive impact, right? Like he had 7 offensive rebounds. Games 2 and 3, Detroit had 32 offensive rebounds. How many of those do you think came from power forwards and centers?
Maybe 5.
9. 28%. So it's guys like, Dennis Jenkins coming
Yeah.
in.
Oh, yeah.
Cade Cunningham basically had an Andre Drummond impression where he was getting every one of his misses, right? Like
For a stretch there, you're right. It was maddening to watch.
And the biggest thing has been the Cavs rebound well when Mobley and Allen are out there. Like the defensive rebound rate is strong there, but when they go to one big, what often happens is you have Jarrett Allen in the center. All of a sudden, you're allowing penetration at the point of attack. Jarrett Allen's coming out to contest the floater in those situations. Yep. He's out of defensive rebounding
Now no one's
position.
in position to grab a rebound.
Right. So whoever's in the dunker spot comes in, gets that offensive rebound, cleans it up, and all of a sudden Jarrett Allen's getting the blame in that situation.
Right.
They need to have better contain at the point of attack, and they have to understand, particularly in those one big situations, that they got to get a body on their man regardless of what their position is.
How do you like the rotation so far? I've been kind of, we're 2 series in, I don't know who's in the rotation or who's not. Guys just show up. What have you thought about the rotation so far in the playoffs?
It's tough because you don't know what you're getting, right? Like it's not easy decisions for Kenny Atkinson because they didn't have the full roster available throughout the regular season, but just game to game from a consistency standpoint, you don't know what you're getting from your role players. I still have questions about the starting lineup. I think maybe there was too much focus on that in the Toronto series because that lineup was working well. But particularly when we talk about those offensive rebounds, one of the trade-offs of having Dean Wade starting is that when you go small, you're going really small, right? Like you're seeing those 3-4 guard lineups in those spots. Whereas if you start somebody else, Dean can at least be out there as a power forward. He's not a strong rebounder himself, but he does insulate those lineups to some extent. I'm just not sure which direction you go. If this was last year's Max Strus, where he's not coming back from a foot injury and he still has that lateral quickness, I think he's the easy answer.
Right.
Jalen Tyson gives you something, but the thing about starting Jalen Tyson is you now have your 3 least attentive off-ball defenders starting together, in Donovan James and Jalen.
Yeah.
Particularly in a lineup that's going against Duncan Robinson. I think maybe Max would be the answer if I was to make a tweak. I don't expect them to make a tweak coming off a win.
Right.
But, I think there is a value to having Jalen Tyson come off the bench where he can have more usage as well.
We have 10 seconds. Who wins tonight?
I think the Cavs. I think they're finally going to have a good shooting game.
All right, we hope so.